The words were delivered casually over our family dinner. "Don't come to my wedding, Sophia," my sister Lauren said, a bright, unwavering smile on her face. "You'll just embarrass me in front of Derek's family." My mother's immediate nod was a swift endorsement. My father's silence was a deafening agreement. Then, as if bestowing a great honor, Lauren offered her compromise. "Actually, maybe you could work it instead. Coordinate things. Be useful." I mirrored her sharp smile and said I'd think about it. The raw truth was that they had absolutely no concept of the empire I had built, brick by invisible brick, right under their dismissive noses. I remembered the first wedding I shot, my hands trembling so badly I had to rest the lens on a chair. The bride's mother had scoffed. "Is she even a professional?" I used the humiliation as fuel. While my family toasted Lauren's acceptance into a sorority, I spent my nights studying light and editing software until my eyes burned. My apartment was a stark contrast to Lauren's curated dorm room: a futon, a desk, and walls papered with inspirational quotes about entrepreneurship. My social life evaporated. Dates were replaced with client consultations. Weekends were spent not at brunch, but behind a lens, capturing the love stories of others while mine lay fallow. The first expansion was born from both opportunity and exhaustion. 3 years in, I was photographing a wedding where the caterer, a man named Marco, served rubbery chicken. He confessed later, over a shared glass of cheap wine, that he was drowning. "My heart's not in the books, kid. It's in the kitchen." I saw past the financial chaos to his talent. Using every cent of my savings and a nerve-wracking small business loan, I bought Gusto Catering. The rebrand to Sage and Bloom was my vision: food as art. I hired a fierce culinary director, Lena, and gave her a mandate: surprise people. We became the whispered secret for brides who wanted their guests to remember the meal, not just a dress. The florist, Eleanor, came into my life like a fairy godmother with a spreadsheet phobia. I approached her after photographing her stunning work at a fundraiser. "Your arrangements are poetry," I told her. "Let me handle the prose." Our partnership was symbiotic. She taught me about the language of lilies and the arrogance of orchids. I streamlined her operations, tripling her bookings. When her hands could no longer bear the thorns, she sold gardenia to me, making me swear on her mother's shears to never use baby's breath as a filler. I rebranded it as Garden and Grace, and we began creating immersive floral worlds: ceilings dripping with wisteria, aisles lined with fragrant herbs. Bella Vista was the dream I never voiced. I'd photographed 12 weddings there, and each time a deep, possessive longing took root. When the "for sale" sign appeared, it felt like a personal dare. The negotiation was the most terrifying thing I'd ever done. I presented my consolidated business plan to the stone-faced bank manager, my palms slick with sweat. When she finally said, "We're prepared to offer the financing," I walked to my car and cried for 20 minutes from sheer relief. I operated it all under separate, luxurious brands, hiring charismatic people like David, a former actor, to be the charming face of Bella Vista. In our marketing, you saw happy teams and stunning work, but never me. I was the silent pulse behind it all. I was the practical one, the fixer. Lauren's life was the headline. Mine was the fine print no one read. A month out, I ran into her bridesmaids, Jessica and Madison, at a cafe. They enveloped me in a cloud of perfume and pity. "Sophia, it's so sad you can't make it. Lauren said you're just swamped with your little business." Madison added, "It must be hard seeing her marry into the Morrisons, but you must be so proud, even from the sidelines." Their laughter felt like shards of glass in my skin. By 11:05, my phone was a vortex of hysterical sound. "Sophia, everything's canceled. The wedding is tomorrow." I held the phone away from my ear. "I'm sure there's a reason. Some stupid ownership conflict. You have to call them. Fix this." "I'll see what I can do," I said flatly. An hour later, she exploded into my office, a tempest in a ruined designer dress, makeup streaked like a tragic painting. "You have to help me. Call them. Offer more money. Anything." She was a raw nerve of terror. I let her plead until her voice grew hoarse. Then, slowly, I pulled a folder from my desk. I slid it toward her. "You mean these vendors?" She snatched it. "Yes, call the owner." I leaned back, steepling my fingers. "I don't need to call the owner." "What? Why not?" "Because I am the owner. Luminous Events, Sage and Bloom, Garden and Grace, Bella Vista, they're all mine." The blood drained from her face. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. It was as if her entire operating system had crashed. You're lying." "I have the deeds, the tax filings, the incorporation papers. You've been planning your wedding through my companies for 8 months." The shock began to morph into a frantic bargaining hope. Okay, but this is perfect. You can just uncancel it. Tell them it was a mistake." "No." The syllable was a stone dropped into the silence. "No? What do you mean, no? I'm your sister." "You revoked that title," I said, my voice steady as steel. "You treated me as a service provider you were ashamed of. My companies have a policy. We do not work for clients who disrespect the ownership. You have done so repeatedly." The office door burst open. My parents, summoned by Lauren's earlier chaos, stood framed in the doorway. "What is the meaning of this, Sophia? Call off this childish stunt." I didn't stand. I didn't raise my voice. I simply opened my desk drawer and began laying the documents on the glass surface: the LLC filings, the Bella Vista deed with my name as grantee, the audited financials showing 7-figure revenues, the glossy annual report for the holding company I'd formed. The bluster evaporated. My father picked up the deed, his fingers tracing the embossed seal. His face paled. This is real? You own Bella Vista?" "Yes." "All of it? The catering, the flowers?" "Yes." He looked from the papers to my face, a stranger's face he was seeing for the first time. "You built all of this by yourself? While you co-signed Lauren's leases and paid for her wedding dress," I finished, my tone devoid of emotion. It was merely fact. I finally met her gaze. "What would you have done, Mother? Would you have been proud, or would your first question have been about a family discount for Lauren?" The question hung in the air, sharp and absolute. The answers they had none. The silence that followed was the sound of a worldview shattering. "The refunds are processed," I said, standing. "My assistant ties referrals. That is the extent of my involvement." The aftermath was both chaotic and quiet. Lauren's wedding was postponed for 2 months. The scramble was an expensive nightmare. A generic hotel ballroom, a mediocre caterer, a florist who used too much glitter. It happened, but it was a permanent monument to her loss, not her triumph. My family's guilt trips, "You ruined her one day. How could you be so cold?" echoed for weeks before fading into a thick, heavy silence. That silence was my chrysalis. In the absence of their noise, I finally heard my own voice. I doubled down on my work, acquiring a limousine service and a wedding cake boutique, further consolidating my empire. The silence didn't isolate me, it freed me. Months later, the feature in the Business Chronicle was the catalyst. Behind the veil, the quiet mogul rewriting the wedding industry. My parents saw it at their country club. The apology calls that followed were laced with a new, awkward respect. "We had no idea. We're so impressed." Lauren sent a long, rambling text, an attempt at an apology that still centered her feelings. "I guess I never saw you. What you did was brutal, but kind of powerful." I read it all. I felt the faint, old tug of the loyal daughter, the good sister, but the cord had been cut. I didn't reply that day. I waited a week, and then I wrote back to Lauren not with anger, but with a simple, unassailable truth. "I built what you needed, but you only valued it when you thought it wasn't mine. I hope your marriage brings you more wisdom than our sisterhood did." I had finally learned the lesson etched in every struggle. My worth wasn't a seed planted in the barren soil of their approval. It was a tree I'd grown alone, weathering every storm they sent. Its roots were my resilience, its branches my success. Their eventual belated glance upward at its height changed nothing about the tree's solid, magnificent existence. The freedom was not in their acknowledgement, it was in the profound, unshakable knowledge that I had been the source of my own light all along. And that light, built in the darkness of their disregard, now shone too brightly for their shadows to ever touch again.